All right, guys, we're starting this 1984 chapter 2 tonight. Um, Hopefully, I get a bunch of you in here. Seems like it's pretty early, but I'm gonna start reading away since nobody's here. As he put his hand on the doorknob, Winston saw that he had left the diary open on the table. Down with Big Brother was written all over it, in letters almost big enough to be legible across the room. It was inconceivably stupid, or it was an inconceivably stupid thing to have done. But he realized, even in his panic, he had not wanted to smudge the creamy paper by shutting uh, the book while the ink was wet. Ooh, that would suck. So he's like choosing to write with like wet ink and can't close the book. And then he's got somebody pounding on his door. Look at the police. Anyways, carrying on. He drew in his breath and opened the door. Instantly, a warm wave of relief flowed through him. A colorless, crushed-looking woman with wisp hair and a lined face. Was standing outside. "Oh, comrade," she began in a dreary, whining sort of a voice. "I thought I heard you come in. Do you think you could come across and have a look at our kitchen sink? It's got blocked up, and it was Miss Parsons, the wife of a neighbor on the same floor." Miss was a word somewhat dis discountenanced discountenanced discountenanced. I don't know what that word is. By the party. You were supposed to call everyone comrade, but with some women, one used it instinctively. She was a woman about 35, but looking much older. One had the impression that there was dust in the creases of her face. Winston followed her down the passage. The amateur repair jobs were almost a daily irritation. Victory mansions were old flats built in 1930 or thereabouts and were falling to pieces. The plaster flaked constantly from the ceiling walls, the pipes burst in every hard frost, the roof leaked whenever there was snow, and the heating system was usually running at half steam. So they live in a just the worst situation that they can be living in.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, when it was not closed down altogether from motives of the or when from motives of economy, repairs except what you could do for yourself had to be sanctioned by remote committees, which were liable to hold up even the mending of the window pane for 2 years. Of course, it's only because Tom isn't home," said Miss Parsons vaguely. The Parsons flat was bigger than Winston's and dingy in a different way. Everything had a battered, trampled on look, as though the place had just been visited by some large, violent animal. Game in, impedient, holy crap, games impedimenta, hockey sticks, boxing gloves, a burst football, a pair of sweaty shorts turned inside out lay all over the floor, and on the table there was a litter of dirty dishes and dog eared exercise books. On the wall were scarlet banners of youth leagues and the spies, and a full size poster of Big Brother. There was the usual boiled cabbage smell, common to the whole building, but it was shot through by a sharper reek of sweat, which one knew this at the first sniff. Though it was hard to say how. Was the sweat of some person not present at the moment? And in another room with a comb and a piece of toilet paper was trying to keep tune with the military music, which was still issuing from the telescreen. God, it just like sounds like a real, just a shitty place to live in, you know? Like, that's like rough. I can't, like, it's a good in visualization. And it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of like a goofy read because it's old, but I couldn't imagine living in that kind of a situation. And then just like that cabbage smell, and then the smell of piss and sweat and just everything. Like, it's just like definitely giving me a whole vibe, you know? Anyways, it's the children, said Miss Parsons, casting a half apprehensive glance at the door. They haven't been out today, and of course, she had a habit of breaking off her sentences in the middle of the kitchen, or in the middle. The kitchen sink was full nearly to the brim with filthy greenish water, which smelt worse than ever of cabbage. Ooh, big rotten cabbage, hell yeah. Winston knelt down and examined the angled joint of the pipe. He hated using his hands. He hated bending down, which was always liable to start him coughing. Miss Parsons looked on him helplessly. Of course, if Tom was home, he'd put it right in a moment, she said. He loves anything like that. He's ever so good with hands, Tom is. If you're enjoying this, I encourage you to leave a like, 100%, comment, and I'm glad that at least one person is leaving a comment and saying that they're liking it, so.
Well, and you also have to think about the context of this scene. Like, you have a woman who's, like, clearly, like, a physical human representation of the building they live in. Like, worn out, like a product of their time, and is still, like, showing that she's brainwashed enough by the party that she's blind to it. Because think about being Winston. You're, like, walking into this crap shack. Like, it's fucking gross. Clearly, the sink has been backed up for some time. It didn't just magically fill with water and get scuzzy and green. And this lady's like, Miss Parsons, like, oh, well, if my husband was here, he'd fix it. Like, he's not gone that much. Like, he can't really fix it. But it's just a symptom of society, of just being blind to the problem and just band-aiding over it.
Yep. Well, and then how old did it say he was? Do you remember?
I can't remember. I want to say he's in his 30s.
Yeah, that's what I was just say, like 35. Either way, my thing is like, why are they all so screwed up? Is it just like malnourishment? They're not clean, like all that stuff?
It is, like I said, imagine like 39. It's like the life is just hard. Like the communism, socialism, there is no room for joy or happiness or frivolity, like things that keep you young and going. Like, there is time for work and pay and do your duty and be a cog in a machine that ultimately benefits no one but those on top.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Alright. I just wanted to put a Q&A on here. Alright, anyways, carrying on. Parsons was Winston's fellow employee at the Ministry of Truth. He was a fattish but active man of paralyzing stupidity, a mass of imbecile enthusiasms. Wow. Yeah. One of those completely unquestioning, devoted drudges on whom more ever than the thought police. The stability of the party depended. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, it's like Miss Parsons, like too stupid to be aware of how shitty things are.
Yeah, it's like Korea.
Well, literally.
At 35, he had just been unwillingly evicted from the youth league, and before graduating into the youth league, he had managed to stay on in the spies for a year beyond the statutory age. At the ministry, he was employed in some subordinate post for which intelligence was not required. But on the other hand, he was the leading figure on the sports committee and all other committees engaged in organizing community hikes, spontaneous demonstration, saving campaigns, and voluntary activities generally. He would inform you with quiet pride between whiffs of his pipe that he had put in an appearance at the community center every evening for the past 4 years. An overwhelming smell of sweat, a sort of unconscious testimony to the strenuousness of his life, followed him about wherever he went, and even remained behind him after he had gone. You know, that's something else that nobody thinks about is I guarantee you they don't have deodorant. They're probably not bathing regularly. Like, these people are having a rough life.
Why would you? And it all seems stupid when you're told it's like a waste. It's like we were talking about the other night. Like, the first thing to go for women when they do this is hair.
Yep.
Because it's too much. It's vanity. It's putting in effort that doesn't need to be for nothing.
Yep. Yep. Oh, yeah. Have you got a spanner? Said Winston, fiddling with the nut on the angle joint. A spanner, said Miss Parsons, immediately becoming invertebrate. I don't know. I'm sure. Perhaps the children. There was a trampling of boots and another blast on the comb as the children charged into the living room. Miss Parsons brought the spanner. Winston let out the water and disgustedly removed the clot of human hair that had blocked up the pipe. He cleaned his fingers as best he could in the cold water from the tap and went back into the other room. Up with your hands, yelled a savage voice. A handsome, tough-looking boy of 9 had popped up from behind the table and was menacing him with a toy automatic pistol, while his small sister, about 2 years younger, made the same gesture with a fragment of wood. Both of them were dressed in the blue shorts, gray shirts, and red neckerchiefs, which were the uniform of the spies. Winston raised his hands above his heads, but with an uneasy feeling. So vicious was the boy's demeanor that it was not altogether a game. You're a traitor, yelled the boy. You're a thought criminal. You're a Eurasian spy. I'll shoot you. I'll vaporize you. I'll send you to the salt mines. Ooh, salt mines.
Mm-hmm.
That's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man.
Well, and I don't know, like, think about the environment that a kid would have grown up into to threaten to banish someone to a salt mine.
Yep.
For nothing more than a thought.
Yep.
Calling him a thought criminal. Like, the children in this book are the scariest.
Well, yeah.
Because they are rabidly for the party.
Yep.
They don't know anything different.
Well, yeah, they're essentially brainwashed.
Well, it's beyond brainwashing. They've been, like, groomed and tailored for this specifically.
Yep. just doing another changing this Q&A. Anyways. Suddenly, they were both leaping around him, shouting traitor and thought criminal. The little girl imitated... I just thought about that, too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why that just came over my mind.
Yeah.
He that's what he was doing.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, so imagine how stressed he is right now.
Yeah, he's like shitting his pants. Like, how do these kids know? He's like, how do you little shits, like...
Yeah, like, how'd you know?
Anyways, the little girl imitating her brother in every moment. It was somehow slightly frightening, like the gambling of tiger cubs, which will soon grow up into man-eaters. There was sort of a calculating ferocity with the boys, or in the boy's eye, a quite evident desire to hit or kick Winston, and a consciousness of being very nearly big enough to do so. It was a good job. It was not a real pistol he was holding, Winston thought. And stuff. That's something else like throws me off, is it was a good job. I mean, we'd say it was a good thing.
Well, that's not even just because of the time it was written, because it realistically wasn't written that long ago. That is due to how they have changed speech and speaking patterns.
Okay.
Like within this time frame.
That makes sense. Miss Parsons' eyes flitted nervously from Winston to the children and back again. In the better light of the living room, he noticed with interest that there actually was dust in the creases of her face. They do get so noisy, she said. They're disappointed because they couldn't go to see the hanging. That's what it is. I'm too busy to take them. And Tom won't be back from work in time. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we go and see the hanging? Roared the boy in his huge voice. Want to see the hanging. Want to see the hanging, chanted the little girl, still capering around. Some Eurasian prisoners, guilty of war crimes, were to be hanged in the park that evening. Winston remembered this happening about once a month, and it was a popular spectacle. Children always clamored to be taken to see it. He took his leave of Miss Parson and made for the door. I'm just like, but realistically,
I know.
like think like 1700s, like it's not like
Even
that
then,
off.
they wouldn't have taken like little children, like older kids, you know, but not to, I don't know, like even in the Old West, there wouldn't have been little tiny children. Because at a certain point, you have to maintain children's innocence or humanity is lost. Because these children don't grow up, like, enjoying life. So they grow up being bitter, shitty adults.
Which is true.
And then they get shittier and bitter, like, the more generations go on. Because that innocence and childlike sense of wonder is what foundates humanity.
Yeah.
Even in Japan, think about the hard life they live, and kids are fucking brats until they're 6.
Yeah.
Until they start school. They have no rules. Parents don't tell them no because they know once life starts, it's over.
Yeah.
You can't take that away. It makes bad humans.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. But he had not gone 6 steps down the passage when something hit the back of his neck, an agonizingly painful blow. It was as though a red-hot wire had been jabbed into him. He spun around just in time to see Miss Parsons dragging her son back into the doorway while the boy pocketed a catapult. What? Ah, that's crazy. Goldstein bellowed the boy as the door closed on him. But what most struck Winston was the look of helpless fright on the woman's grayish face. Back in the flat, he stepped quickly past the telescreen and he sat down at the table again, still rubbing his neck. The music from the telescreen had stopped. Instead, a clipped military voice was reading out, with a sort of brutal relish, a description of the armaments of the new floating fortress, which had just been anchored between Iceland and the Faroe Islands. With those children, he thought that wretched woman must lead a life of terror. Another year, 2 years, and they would be watching her night and day for symptoms of unorthodoxy. Nearly all the children nowadays were horrible. What was worst of all was that by means of such organizations as the spies, they were systematically turned into ungovernable little savages. That's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, this produced in them no tendency whatsoever to rebel against the discipline of the party. On the contrary, they adored the party and everything connected with it. The songs, the processions, the banners, the hiking, the drilling with dummy rifles, and the yelling of slogans, the worship of Big Brother. It was all sort of a glorious game to them. All their ferocity was turned outwards against the enemy of the state, against foreigners, against traitors, saboteurs, thought criminals. It was almost normal for people over 30 to be frightened of their own children, and with good reason, for hardly a week passed in which the Times did not carry a paragraph describing how some eavesdropping little sneak child hero was the phrase generally used, had overheard some compromising remark and denounced his parents to the thought police. Ooh.
Think about COVID.
Yep. Well, 100%.
Like how many kids turned in their parents for going and visiting grandma and grandpa?
Oh, yeah. Exactly. That is insane.
But do you think I got so freaked out?
No.
I was like, I think they banned this book too soon.
Is this a banned book?
In some states, yeah.
States, oh, okay. That's insane.
Yeah, people kind of get stupid when they're like, oh, did you know there's a banned book? Like, did you know there's no federal banned book list?
Well, yeah.
It's up to the school district, so complain at your school board.
Yep. Well, yeah, and if the school district's banning it, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, if you're enjoying this, please leave a like. Follow me because I'm not going to be finishing this whole book tonight. If you want to follow along, then you're going to have to follow me or subscribe. I'm also going to be posting the recording after we're done. It takes a while, but chapter 1 is on my wall. Or not on my wall, but in my videos. You can find it there on my page. Anyways, continuing on. The sting of the catapult bullet had worn off. He picked up his pen half-heartedly, wondering whether he could find something more to write in the diary. Suddenly, he began thinking of O'Brien again. Years ago, how long was it? 7 years it must be. He had dreamed that he was walking through a pitch-dark room, and someone sitting to one side of him had said, as he passed, "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness." It was very quietly, almost casually, a statement, not a comment, or not a command. He had walked on without pausing. What was curious was that at the time, in the dream, the words had not made much of an impression on him. It was only later and by degrees that they had seemed to take on significance. He could not now remember whether it was before or after having the dream that he had seen O'Brien for the first time, nor could he remember when he had first identified the voices of O'Brien's, but at any rate, the identification existed. It was O'Brien who had spoken to him out of the dark. If you're enjoying this, definitely drop a like. I don't have a single like here. It's insane. As soon as I say that, everybody flies away. They're like, nope, I can't double tap this thing. That's a lot of effort. Are you kidding me? My thumbs are broken.
Right.
I got one. Anyways, Winston had been able to feel sure, even after this morning's flash of the eyes, it was still impossible to be sure whether O'Brien was a friend or an enemy. Nor did it seem to matter greatly. There was a link of understanding between them, more importantly than affection or partisanship. We shall meet in a place where there is no darkness, he said. Winston did not know what it meant, only that some way or another it would come true. The voice from the telescreen paused. A trumpet call, clear and beautiful, floated into the stagnant air. The voice continued raspingly. Attention, attention, please. The news flash has this moment arrived from the Malabar front. Our forces in South India have won a glorious war. I am authorized to say that the action we are now reporting may well bring the war within measurable distance of its end. Here is the news flash. Bad news coming, thought Winston. And sure enough, following on a gory description of the annihilation of the Eurasian army, with stupendous figures of killed and prisoners, came the announcement that, as from next week, the chocolate ration would be reduced from 30 grams to 20. Winston belched again. The gin was wearing off, leaving a deflated filling. The telescreen, perhaps to celebrate the victory, perhaps to drown the memories of the lost chocolate, crashed into Oceana. 'Tis for thee. You were supposed to stand at attention. However, in his present position, he was invisible. Oh, I gotta pause and say something because if I don't, then I'm gonna get copyrighted. So, but it's crazy. Like realistically, it is crazy that that's the way it went.
Mhm. Well, that's just like existence.
Yeah, like sitting there like having to hide from your TV so they can't just watch you.
Mhm. Yep.
Oceana, 'tis for thee, gave way to lighter music. Winston walked over to the window, keeping his back to the telescreen. The day was still colder and clear. Somewhere far away, a rocket bomb exploded with a dull, reverberating roar. About 20 or 30 of them a week were falling on London at present. Down in the street, the wind flapped the torn poster to and fro, and the word Ingsoc fitfully appeared and vanished. Ingsoc, the sacred principle of Ingsoc, newspeak, doublethink, and mutability of the past. He felt as though he were wandering in the forest of the sea bottom, lost in a monstrous world where he himself was the monster. He was alone. The past was dead. The future was unimaginable. What certainly had he that a single human creature now living on his side? And that way of knowing that the dominion of the party would not endure forever. Like an answer, the three slogans on the white face of the Ministry of Truth came back to him. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. He took a 25-cent piece out of his pocket. There, too, in tiny clear lettering, the same slogans were inscribed on and on the other side on the other face of the coin, the head of Big Brother. Even from the coin's eye, the eyes pursued you. Even from the coin, the eyes pursued you. That would be sketchy. That would definitely be 100% sketchy to have eyeballs watching you on a coin. But it makes you wonder, is the coin actually watching them? Anyways, on coins, on stamps, on covers of books, on banners, on posters, on wrapping of a cigarette pack, everywhere. Always the eyes watching you and the voice enveloping you. Asleep or awake, working or eating, indoors or outdoors, in the bath or in bed, no escape. Wow. So they're definitely watching you while you take a shit. They're watching you while you're taking a shower. They're watching you while you shave your shit in the shower. It's not anything I'd want to live in, that's for damn sure. Carrying on. Nothing was your own except a few cubic centimeters inside of your skull. The sun had shifted round and the myriad windows of the Ministry of Truth, with the light no longer shining on them, looked grim as the loopholes of a fortress. His heart quailed before the enormous pyramidal shape. It was too strong. It could not be stormed. 1,000 rocket bombs would not batter it down. He wondered again for whom he was writing the diary. For the future, for the past, for an age that might be imaginary, and in front of him there lay not death, but annihilation. The diary would be reduced to ashes, and in himself to vapor. Only the thought police would read what he had written before they wiped it out of existence and out of memory. How could you make appeal to the future when not a trace of you, not even an anonymous word scribbled on a piece of paper, could physically survive? The telescreen struck 14. He must leave in 10 minutes. He had to be back to work by 14:30. Curiously, the chiming of the hour seemed to have put a new heart into him. He was a lonely ghost uttering truth that nobody would ever hear. But so long as he uttered it in some obscure way, the continuity was not alone. It was not by making yourself heard, but by staying sane that you carried on the human heritage. He went back to the table, dipped his pen, and wrote. If you're enjoying this, definitely subscribe. Most definitely like it. Definitely, most definitely leave me a like if you're enjoying this. Anyways, continuing on. Hang on, I'm going to pause for a half a second. Alright, guys, I'm back. And this is what he wrote down. To the future or to the past, To a time when thought is free, when men are different from one another and do not live alone. To a time when truth exists and what is done cannot be undone. From the age of uniformity, from the age of solitude, from the age of Big Brother, from the age of double think, greetings. He was already dead, he reflected. It seemed to him that it was only now, when he had begun to be able to formulate his thoughts, that he had taken the decisive step. The consequences of every act are included in the act itself, he wrote. Thought crime does not entail death. Thought crime is death. Now that he had recognized himself as a dead man, it became important to stay alive as long as possible. 2 fingers of his right hand were ink-stained. It was exactly the kind of detail that might betray you. Some nosing zealot in the ministry, a woman probably, someone like the little sandy-haired woman or the dark-haired girl from the fiction department, might start wondering why he had been writing during the lunch interval, why he had used an old-fashioned pen, what he had been writing, and then drop a hint in the appropriate quarter. He went to the bathroom and carefully scrubbed the ink away with the gritty dark brown soap, which rasped your skin like sandpaper and was therefore well adapted for this purpose. He put the diary away in a drawer. Thank you. And was quite useless to thinking of hiding it. But he could at least make sure whether or not its existence had been discovered. A hair laid across the page's ends was too obvious. With the tip of his finger, he picked up an identifiable grain of whitish dust and deposited it on the corner of the cover where it was bound to be shaken off the book if it was moved. And that is the end of chapter 2. So, say it again, I'll say it a million times. If you're enjoying this, please leave a like. I'm probably going to be following up with chapter 3 right after this stream, but I'm ending this one right here because I want them all to be separate. So if you want to follow along with this, it'd be a great idea to probably follow me, because then you'll see when my next live stream starts, and like I said, it's probably going to be tonight. I definitely appreciate a thumbs up or whatever, but yep, thanks for watching.